Whew. All right, guys. Today I'm excited to talk to you about a conversation I was having with a buddy of mine who used to work for Tony Robbins. And it was crazy because we actually talked about some of the challenges he was having right before he got the job. And today's episode is going to be about turning your pain into power. I think you're going to like this show.
Cowboy.
Welcome to a daily dose of greatness class with your host, Trevor Crane, my daddy. He's going to help you take your life and business to the next level.
Here I come to save the day.
Trevor Crane here, 11-time #1 best-selling author and the founder of Epic Author Publishing, coming to you live every day so you can plug in every day to build your ideal business so you can live your ideal life.
If my daddy can do it, then anybody can do it because he's a weirdo.
You're supposed to make me sound cool.
All right, welcome back. As I mentioned, I've got a good friend of mine that used to work for Tony Robbins, and we jump on the phone to talk today. I'm doing some interviewing some people for my new book about goal setting, and this is kind of a badass friend of mine. He's really cool. He's one of Tony Robbins' top sales guys, and we're having a conversation because he's gone through different challenges. He had some drug challenges when he was younger that he was able to overcome. He actually works in the drug and rehab industry now, helping people get over and transforming their lives. He's an amazing dude with where he's been and what he's gone through. But I always had seen him as being a very happy, positive guy. And I was talking to him about my friend who had committed suicide. And this, if you listen to any of my episodes, I talk about this on a couple of them recently. And this is kind of a sensitive subject for me, and it's reminded me of how important it is that I help people tell their story and I help people share their message with the world. And it's really helped me get some more clarity about how urgent it is that people share their stories. I met another young man just recently who's 25, and he told me about his struggle with suicide and how he almost took his own life, and then what he's turned it into since then. But I was talking to my buddy. Let's go back to that real quick. And he was telling me that I didn't know this, but he had gone through a divorce at one time. The music business that he was in, the career that he was in had collapsed, and he lost that. And he found himself, and he had a business partner that he really liked, this guy that they were planning big things. And when that guy passed away, I don't think he committed suicide. He was like an adventure guy, and he died. Like my buddy was saying, how he just felt like there was everything that he had built collapsed. And he had been interviewing with the Anthony Robbins companies to become a field sales representative. And Tony has a team of people that will speak around the country to different companies and whatnot. That's one of the ways that he fills his events. And my buddy was petitioning to get that job. And in the course of doing that, he had to present a very happy face. Like he was trying to get a job where he's going to be inspiring and motivating and speaking to a group of people about Tony Robbins stuff. And he was a product of a lot of Tony Robbins programs. But what blew my freaking mind is that he was going through the shit at the time. This was a whole new career change for him. He had lost everything. And although he had been gifted with some of the tools that I've gotten to study with Tony for over a decade that have really helped me improve the quality of my life, my buddy was just going through this for the first time. I don't know why I didn't share his name. I don't think I got a problem with sharing it, or he would have a problem with me sharing it, but I have held it back so far, so I'm just going to keep that going. But here's what blew my mind. I forgot how much pain people are in. My friend works in the drug and rehab industry. He talks to a lot of people that are going through a lot of pain, but he also told me about how everything, he brought me up, he helped me become more aware of how much pain there is in our communities. There's this whole conversation around Me Too, and it's kind of like men versus women, and whether or not we should have guns in schools, and it's like kids versus adults. And there's this gap in our culture lately that seems to be very exclusive and very argumentative and there's a big vulnerability. People being very victim focused. It's just a very strange time. And I had lived in such happiness and abundance for so much time. And when I did some of my first Tony Robbins work, and when I first started doing my own personal development stuff myself, so I could go through things to change my life, I have forgotten that I was in pain. I forgot that I had set up the rules of the game in such a way that I was not happy. Sure, I was out there and I had a business. Sure, I was out there and I was working hard. And yeah, I was smiling and being happy to the world. But on the inside, I was unsatisfied. And I think a lot of people are going through pain right now. And the cool thing about that is I think there is power beyond pain. So I want to share with you a little bit of like how I have done it when I've lost different things. And my buddy ended up getting the job with Tony Robbins. It took him 6 months to get the job. At month 4, when he was in the 4th month of trying to get this job, he actually had a gun in his hand and was considering taking his life. And he didn't for a variety of reasons. And I think one of those is that he had a strong purpose. See, in the middle of his pain, and when he was thinking that it was all over, one of the things, and he didn't exactly say this, but this is because I was interviewing him for my book, one of the things that he helped me realize is that there's a missing ingredient in transferring pain into power. And I think that missing ingredient is purpose. So when he discovered a purpose that was bigger than him, when he figured that there was a reason why this was going through, when he asked different types of questions, when he stopped just being in the pain, when he stopped focused of only being in the pain, he was able to move through it and ask different questions. And those questions gave him a stronger purpose. So again, I'll say the missing ingredient to transform pain into power is purpose. Now that sounds cliche. It's a lot of P words. I kind of like that. I don't know if it's cliche or not, but I want to give you what I have done when I've been going through some of my most painful moments. And I want to take you back to before I had all my Tony Robbins tools at my disposal. So at one stage I was in a business and I had a water sports business. I had a parasail boat. And for 6, maybe 7 years, I was running that business. And it was everything from, I had ups and downs in that business, but I made my first $1 million in that business as well. And I was planning the expansion of that business. And while I was frustrated with it, and there were some challenges with it, and I had a business partner, or at least a business associate at the time, who I didn't love interacting with, I was planning I had big plans for my future water sports business, and we opened up in multiple locations in multiple states, and I owned multiple boats, and I had multiple, well, that was a lot of debt is what I had. Because if you take a boat is nothing but an engine wrapped in fiberglass, and we were working in the ocean and dipped in salt water. So guess what? You have challenges and insurance and a very irresponsible group of people that were helping me run my business, which were young men. God bless young men. They're capable of anything, but they're also capable of anything. They could be the most amazing employee, and then they could disappear in a weekend because they fell in love with some chick and like completely disappear. But at the time, I was planning this future business expansion, and I got a phone call that shut my business down. One phone call. And it was from this damn business partner associate of mine. He wasn't a partner, but he owned a contract that kind of controlled the bulk of my business. And we were just going into our most lucrative season. In fact, I had just lost a lot of money the 6 months prior just due to bad weather and different things that happen when you're in the business of tourism and it's not perfect weather and the perfect holiday doesn't all mix perfectly. And I was just about to recoup the big amount of money in my business. And I got a phone call that shut me down. And I had 28 days notice before I was out of business. And I was so pissed. And I saw everything. I had a lot of money invested, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in all this damn equipment. I had just lost money for 6 months. I needed this spring I needed our spring break. I needed the best time in Florida to go ahead and run my business and make money. And instead, this dude shut me down. And I was so pissed. Because in 1 2-minute phone call or 1 minute phone call, everything was gone. And what I did is I sat down on the floor in my bedroom. I remember this, and I pulled out my journal. And I'd read this in a book at one stage. I think it was actually a book that I had gotten from Donald Trump. It was one of his older first books. And he talked about how if you're in a business situation, and you want to make sure you plan for the worst. So what I did, and I don't know if I got that from him or where I got it, but I decided to write down in my journal because I was all pissed off. And instead of like pretending I wasn't pissed off, I just sat there. I cried. I got upset. I ranted and I raved and I railed. And then I pulled out my journal and I started writing in it. And I wrote, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I just start like, maybe I would lose my house. I would lose my girlfriend. I'd lose my dog. Like I would have the cars repossessed. I just wrote down as bad as it was going to be. And I realized, and I wrote down the ugly shit, like as ugly as it could get. And what it helped give me, I know this is crazy, but see, I think one of the paths to get through pain is to experience it. Instead of pretending like it doesn't bother you, I told you I experienced it. I cried. I screamed. I told this guy to fuck off. I pulled out my journal and I wrote how I felt, and I wrote down what's the worst thing that can happen from this circumstance. And when I looked at that and I read it, and I made it worse than it probably actually would be, because I didn't think I'd actually lose my house. I didn't think my girlfriend actually would leave me. I didn't think my dog would actually die. But I wrote out that stuff. And when I looked at it, I was like, well, what's going to happen if I lost all that? And with that perspective, because I ranted and raved and went through it, I was a little bit exhausted. And by the time I went through it, what I found was a peace and clarity. And I started to ask new questions. See, because I was like, you know what? I'll be alive. Like I'll still, though, fuck it. I can go ahead and deal with this. And because I experienced it, this worked for me, and I'm not sure if it's going to work for you. But what I found is there is power in the pain if you go through it and embrace it. In fact, lately, I told you I've been doing a lot with the warrior movement. There is power in the darkness, not just the light. See, the light pulls us forward. Our light is the vision that we have for what we want. And that we need that. That's part of purpose. Purpose has two things. It has those things that you want and desire that pull you, but it also has the things that you need to defend. It also has the fire, and it has the fucking action step to, like, I'm not going to let this happen. There's the warrior, and that's a dark spirit. And it's one that in our community, like a lot of men and women don't want to embrace. We're all supposed to be happy pappy, but fuck that. Like, I think there is a time to use power and transform it. But what we need to do, in my opinion, is to experience, is to go through it, like to feel to rail, to rant, instead of try to hold it in and like pretend it didn't happen. And then, so my challenge to you is to do this, is to experience it, to take, today I got pissed off at one of my staff. I was someone on my team. They weren't communicating effectively. We got on the phone, we were talking about stuff, and it wasn't going well. And so I just got pissed, and I apologized for it. And I was apologizing while I was doing it, but instead of pretending that I wasn't upset, I just experienced it. Now, maybe she thinks I'm a jackass. In fact, she probably does. But I apologized for it, and then I moved through it. Like, I'm actually not pissed anymore. I'm frustrated that it came up, but what we came up with was a solution. So my challenge for you is to try to do this. Experience your emotions fully when you're going through it. And I can tell you 10 more stories about how I've done this in the past and how this helps me get clarity. And one of the things I'll do after I rail, after I freaking go for it, after I just get pissed when I'm pissed, and then I kind of wear out. Like, it doesn't last more than a few minutes. I can get through it, right? And then I rant, and I'm like, So now I start asking new questions. And one of the core questions, I'll just give you one today, is what else could this mean? See, because when I thought it was the end, and when I thought there was no way back, and when you start thinking that you have no way out, like, holy shit, when my buddy was telling me when he had that gun in his hand and he was about to go, he was also back and forth trying to get this job with Tony Robbins. Like, that whole audience, they had no idea that someone that was so close to becoming this powerful fucking man and leader and father and husband, and he was not those things at the time. He lost his wife. And today he's married and has 2 kids now. But he was so on the cusp of either becoming this fucking the man, like the shit, or taking his life. I forgot that sometimes our pain can seem so powerful that it can overtake us. So my challenge to you is to not let pain own you, but to own pain, to go into it and to try to rail against it and then experience it. Write it all down. Write as bad as it can get. And then go ahead and ask yourself this question, is what else could this mean? And hopefully what you'll find is you'll find more purpose beyond it. See more purpose beyond this pain. See, I believe some of the hardest shit I went through has been given to me as a gift. And I've shared those stories with you as well, that I think there is a gift. And see, diamonds are created under pressure, and the pressure and the challenges that come up for us are given to us to help create a diamond. So hopefully you value that, and you'll take on my challenge today, and you'll take have the courage to go ahead and transform your pain into power. Maybe you'll do that using the strategies I gave you today. And with that, good luck. Have an awesome day, and I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow.
To get even more awesomeness, which means all my best stuff, download my app by texting Trevor to 36260. It will show up right on your cell phone. Just text message the word Trevor to 36260. Talk to you soon.